good morning, everybody, and thanks to the organizer actually to have him here to present this cross-disciplinary project. Actually, it's the first of a kind sponsored by the International Council for Science, which is the main funding agency for the unions, of the professional unions, so the unions of all mathematicians, the unions of astronomers, the unions of physicists, chemists, and so on. So before giving you a description, a summary actually of this project and tell you what we have been doing and what we are, at which stage we have reached, I'm going to actually mention something about unions in case that you are not very familiar with this concept. So I'm giving examples of my union. I'm an astronomer, so I belong professionally to the International Astronomical Union. This one we are going to celebrate the 100th anniversary next year. And the mission, as you can see, is really to promote the science of astronomy very broadly, in very broad terms, based on international collaborations. The members usually have a PhD, and they are above a PhD, so usually we do not have student memberships. And at the moment, you see the counting in June 2018, we have a little bit above 12,000 members across the planet, because we are covering 100 different countries, or at least we have members in 100 different countries. You can see, we are 17% women, and I can tell you that for the past 20 years, this number has not changed, not by one significant digit. So the structure is usually these unions are very well structured and organized in divisions, in commissions, in working groups. So the divisions is really the big science category, the big science being, of a given research field in astronomy. Commissions are kind of subcategories, and working groups are even more specific. So they are going to be after specific topics, and probably they have also a much more reduced lifetime, because they are set up just in order to tackle specific problems. The key roles of organization is usually, they organize scientific meetings, so international scientific meetings. Usually there are around 10 per year in different parts of the world. They have a very strong component about astronomical education, so we have a kind of office for astronomy development, which is based in South Africa, for instance, so they are working very much with underdeveloped countries. And within this union, usually you find working groups about women in astronomy or women in mathematics and so on. So I've been the chair of this working group for the past 6 years. And the mandate is to monitor the status of women in astronomy, of course, within the union, and then try to liaise with the professional astronomical society, if you wish, that they are at the national level. We are also responsible to organize the full gender program at the General Assemblies, which are taking place once every 3 years, and actually our next one is basically upcoming in Vienna at the end of August. So now to the project, a global approach to gender gap in natural sciences. This is a cross-disciplinary project that was funded in response to a call that was issued by the by the International Council for Science. This was the very first call that actually ICSU put out back at the end of 2016. We were approved in February 2017. There were only 3 projects approved through all the unions. And as you can see at the bottom of the slide, it is really an inter or cross-disciplinary project that spans actually different STEM fields, but also non-STEM fields. We have also people from history of science and beyond. We have a support of UNESCO and OSD. And the requirements were really to tackle, certain basic points and key areas in the strategic plan of ICSU and the development goal of UNESCO number 5. This is the project team, so it's just all their symbols, and we are supported by the American Institute of Physics, because they are specifically their statistical office, statistical studies office, because one main component of this project is about actually launching a joint global survey. So the main goals of the project were indeed to provide evidence and reliable data. We chose actually via a joint global survey across all these different disciplines, and via a detailed study of publication patterns. And I will come back to this because I think that they are probably the 2 pillars of this project. We also said that we will collaborate with social scientists in order to highlight and extract from all this data that we are going to put together contrasts and commonalities. And this is not only across disciplines, but is also across geographical areas, because we are union and because we work across countries and across the world. And also we will be able to to check actually differences and commonalities again among between developed and underdeveloped, highly developed or less developed countries. And the third part is really to provide access to everybody, but especially the targeted audience are young girls, young women, families, and teachers and other people who can support actually the wish and the desire, or can inform girls, I mean, how nice it is actually to be in STEM fields, and provide easy access to materials, probably via a public database. So the project was organized, as I said, it started basically last year, at the beginning of last year, and it will run until end of 2019, so it's a 3 years project. And it is organized in these 4 main tasks, so basically work packages, if you wish, to develop and conduct a joint global survey. And for this, basically, the idea was to expand on the 2010 joint global surveys that was run by the American Institute of Physics in the field of physics alone. And they received 15,000 responses from that survey. It's probably the biggest global survey that was done in the physics field. Ours, however, will also reach, it will not only be about people working in academics, but also outside academic, and I will come back to that. And we have actually got a lot of feedback in the preparation of the survey from different geographical areas, just to take into account actually the differences that we have in the cultural background and what is important for one geographical area with respect to the others. As I said, task number 2 is about publication patterns, and I will spend a few words there, and then you see how actually the planning was developed. So year 1 was, of course, a lot of planning, preparation, and conception last year, and now we are really in the second year, which is actually the heaviest one, if you wish, because we are really implementing the data collection and the analysis of these efforts. So I'm very happy actually to announce that the Joint Global Survey was launched on May 1st, so it's there. It's out. It was, we had 3 regional meetings, and in the 3 main regional offices of ICSU, which is Taipei, Bogota, and Cape Town, so South Africa, Asia, and South America. It has been translated in 7 languages, and they are available, and it follows the so-called snowballing scheme. So basically, we did not announce we did not target a specific list of or assembled list of people working in these fields. We are just trying to find and to follow as many different communication channels and information channels that we can. But we are asking every person who's receiving the invitation actually to forward the invitation to anybody that they think could be interested, or I mean, this survey could be for them actually to take part of the survey. So the audience, as I said, is not only academia, it's also outside academia, basically everybody who works, who has been working, or who has been educated in any of the fields of the unions, mostly. But of course, if somebody is, for instance, in engineering, and we do not have a union of engineers among our partners, I mean, that is fine as well. I mean, they will find a way actually to specify their specific research field, and they will be counted, of course. I mean, in the final, they will be analyzed as an extra group. The goal is very ambitious, I think, because the survey is extremely long, that I have to warn you, I mean, so it's going to take quite some time. But of course, they wanted to cover as many information as possible to try to collect as many data as possible. So our target goal is to reach 45,000 respondents. It's basically half a year that the survey will be open. So far, in the first month, we got 8,000 responses. They are very different. They differ a lot among different geographical areas. For instance, we are doing extremely well actually with Asia. We are doing very bad with North America at the moment. And we are doing very well with South America. And Europe is kind of okay. So Oceania is actually doing also very well. So I mean, it's very interesting to see how the different geographical areas are responding, and also per country when you start to break down. I mean, countries where actually they do have a major gender imbalance, actually it seems that actually they are responding at a much higher rate than other countries. It is not a women-only survey, so, and at the moment I think that this actually is being well received, because of the 8,000 we have actually 45% women respondents and 55% men, which I think that is very positive, and it seems to have been understood. So to the task number 2, let me just spend a few words about publication patterns. We have learned already yesterday actually a lot about that, and how important they are in the development, in the career development of a researcher, of an academic person. So these bibliometric statistics actually are considered as one of the main key performance indicators, fortunately or unfortunately, I think. It does put a lot of pressure actually on this very high competitivity that you have when you apply for jobs, but especially for the so-called excellence grants, where actually this key performance indicator is used. So I was very pleased to hear actually that things are moving away from that, so that they are taking into account many other aspects of the curriculum of a researcher, because I think that there is still way too much there remain too much focus actually on the publication patterns. So we heard yesterday also from the SHIELD figures that they are also including is one of their targets. I mean, so basically they are monitoring publications. As you can see, I mean, the green tick marks here, I mean, is that yes, you do have female corresponding authors up to 31% among all the publications, women and men publish in comparably influential journals. So this is all good. However, I mean, when you go a little bit more into detail, I mean, you see that women do lag behind with respect to men in terms of size and impact of their papers. And a smaller portfolio, I mean, is perceived as being of lower quality, no matter how much you take into account all the differences, I mean, in the career, in the curriculum of a person. Recently, I think in the last couple of years, there have been actually quite some important analysis and publications about publication patterns, scientific publications. One was in mathematics, and I think that was probably the most detailed one that was published by Mihajlović, Brand, and collaborators. They use the ZB Math database. And as you can see the numbers, I mean, they look up at the scholarly output of 150,000 mathematicians over a period of almost 50 years. And here I just want, you do not need to read the whole slide, and I just wanted to highlight in red, I put actually the main results because they are quite similar. And there are less publication in the early years, women publish less as first authors, which is also another KPI, I mean, that usually is used by interview boards, by selection boards. I mean, how many first author papers actually you have published. And you have 3 different works in mathematics, biology, and astronomy. Astronomy has found, for instance, I mean, that actually the papers authored by women have less citations and fewer citations, and that is also counted because, I mean, a lot of things are based on H index. So the task 2, I mean, what we are going to do, we are going to expand the existing study, for instance, for mathematics, actually to other disciplines, one of which is astronomy, so where I'm heavily involved into that. And where we are now, actually, we are classifying the journals because we will be using the astrophysics database server, the ADS, and that contains basically hundreds of different type of journals, from the very local journal, I mean, of a given institute, and to a newsletter, to a proceedings of a conference, or to really mainstream scientific journals. So we are trying to classify that, and we will be able to compare actually things among all these different categories. And I think that the major obstacle, I mean, in this study is actually the author's disambiguation, because people unfortunately do not publish always using the same standardized name. So I'm not talking about changing the last name. I mean, if you get married or you keep your own last name, I mean, I'm really talking about how you're going to initialize your first name, actually. Sometimes it's just an initial, dotted initial. Sometimes it's a full name. Sometimes you put in also the initials of a middle name. Sometimes you put 3 dotted initials. And that, of course, I mean, so what we are going to do to train the algorithm is actually we have extracted 50 names clusters, and one by one, by hand, actually, we are going to try to put in our knowledge, actually, how to recognize if that is the same author or not, based also on the content of their publication. Finally, this is just starting. This is task number 3. It's a database of good practices. I cannot really say much about that because it's really just starting. I think that there are many similar initiatives, as we have already heard, I mean, for the past 2 days. We are following the Saga toolkit just because we have a Saga project scientist actually part of our team, but there is the Genera toolkit. I think that here the problem, I mean, our initial goal was indeed also to express recommendation or to provide some feedback on the effectiveness of all the different practices actually that we are going to list and the impact that they have had in the field. However, I think that is a very difficult, so this is an area actually that would need some improvement because I think it's very difficult to have, there are very few publications that show actually what is being the impact of a given initiative, if you wish, and also because it takes anyway quite some time, I mean, before you're able to estimate that and to have an idea of that. So what will 2019 bring for us for this project? I mean, as you can see, I mean, we will analyze the results, of course, we will complete the publication analysis, And we will have a final meeting at the end of 2019, hosted by HOST in Trieste, basically at CSID, the International Scientific Studies Institute. And I will thank you. I'm thanking you actually for your attention. And these are the information about how to reach us, how to check us on the website, and how to contact us. Thank you so much.